have a background layer. That's this water. So if I shut it off, you'll see that it's gone. We've got a girl underwater. So that's kind of this face type shape. And then we have this set of eyes that is actually from a full portrait. And if I disable this mask, you can see that we've only taken just the eyes from this portrait. And then we've done some stuff up here to affect the color. So all we're going to do in this video is look at layering one photo on top of another and then using masks. So I'm going to start by just getting rid of all of the extras, which this step you don't have to worry about. But what I essentially want here is different photos. So I've already drugged these down to the Photoshop icon, and now they've automatically opened all in one window with different tabs up top. Now I showed you guys earlier, I like to pull these things apart and stair step them. Okay, and I can pull each one of these down and double click on the hand or go down to the corner and shrink it in just so they're not so big, just to make my workspace here easier. Now, and the reason I like to do this is because now I can see a little bit of each photo. Now we're going to use this as our background, so I'm going to move it over here just out of the way. And for the moment, I want to put the set of eyes from this portrait on that photo. Now there's more than one way to do this, but I find that the quickest, smoothest way is to have this one highlighted or active. I can tell this photo's active, one, because it's on top, two, because these little circles up here are actually in color. Notice the ones on these two photos are not. And since this one's active, the thumbnail of it's down here in the layer, and I can drag that. I could drag it to either one of these photos, but I'm going to hover over the waterscape and let go. And now all of a sudden I have my portrait photo over top of my waterscape photo. Now this is really big. I'm going to double click on the hand here to make this fit the screen. Getting the move tool to move this thing around. Now this is bigger than I'd like it to be. So the one thing we have to understand is we can always distort, change, transform any layer through edit transform. Now we learned that in a past lesson. And I can choose any of this stuff still. Now I know that I want to scale it. I'm going to get the bounding boxes. I'm going to hold shift to keep the aspect ratio so it's not going to smash or slim down the portrait. And I'm just going to shrink this down a little bit. Let go with my mouse, let go of shift. Now I also know that her eyes are slightly crooked, so I also want to rotate this a little bit. So I'm just going to go to edit transform again, rotate. Once the arrows are curved, I can rotate this just a little bit, and I can press return or double click it to apply this change. Now in this photo, all I want showing are the eyes. So again, we've learned how to make that happen. And we can do that by adding a mask and covering up the rest of this face with a mask. Now adding a mask, remember, is the dot down here within a rectangle. And once we click that, it's going to add a mask to whatever layer that we're on. Automatically is white. Anytime I paint this black, it's going to deactivate or cover up anything on this layer. In this case, this layer is a photo, so it's just going to make it look like it disappeared or deleted. So paintbrush, black paint. For this photo, I'm going to make sure that it is set to 100%. And as soon as I start painting, we're going to see this thing disappear. Now it's not erasing, it's not gone, it's just masked off. Now when I say that, that means if I flip the paint to white, put a streak of white, it's just going to come right back. I just did Command Z to undo that. So I'm going to keep getting rid of this. I've got a really soft edge brush, that's why it's giving me a really soft edge. I could change that to harder if I wanted. But that's pretty much the look I'm looking for. The eyes, it went into the eye there a little bit, so I'm going to shrink this brush down just a tad. And I'm going to flip it to white, and I'm going to make these eyes just a little bit more intense. So they're getting more intense just because I accidentally took some of them off with my black paint. So now you can still move this around. Okay, that part doesn't change. You can still rotate it, edit, transform, all of those things. So let's say I want to add one more. Okay, I'm going to move this so I can see my other photos. I'm going to choose with the header bar my other photo, and again drag in from the layer palette this one over top of this photo and let go. So now I have a third layer. Now typically on work I would say I have 10 or more layers, so I usually name every one of these. You know, I might name this like Water Girl, and I might just make this one Eyes, just so there's no confusion as I'm working through this thing. Now I want to work on the Water Girl, so I'm selecting her, highlighting her in my layer palette. I'm going to get the Move tool and place her. Now what you're noticing right here is that this photo is covering the eyes. And from the one that I showed you earlier, I actually want the eyes over her. So here's something that's important to know. You can move these layers up and down. Okay? And when I say up, up really means towards the top of the image. So if I move the eyes up, they're now above the girl. If I move them down, they go below the girl in the water. So we're going to put them up. Now I'm going to go back and highlight Water Girl layer. And now I can work on her. Whichever one is highlighted in the layer palette is the one that I'm working on. So I want to change her. I want to make her image a little bit bigger, not very much. So I'm going to hit Command T or go to Edit Transform. Both will do the same thing. And I'm going to hold Shift to keep it in proportion. And I'm just going to make this photo a little bit bigger, not very much. And I want her head pretty much between the eyes, and I'm going to leave her about right here, and I'm going to apply the transformation, which means I can press enter or double click on the photo. And now all I really want to do is shape this photo and soften the edges. Now I can do that the same way as I did this to the eyes, which is add a mask to this layer. So add a mask. It's automatically white. I'm going to get a brush that I can use. I'm going to double check to make sure it has a soft edge, which it does. Make sure it's about the right size, which this is going to work I think for this. And then black paint. And as I rub the edge, that hard edge is going to go away. And if I want, I can kind of shape it. And I'm going to shape it just sort of like it's a face, even though it's not. So there we have 3 different layers, 3 different photos mixed together. And each one of these I can click on and mess with them individually if I want. So I'm going to stop this video here, and then the next video I'm going to talk about adding adjustment layers either to single layers at a time or the whole image.